So I'll tell you one more story, because it's just difficult to speak about him. You know, I had almost 40 years with Pir Vilayat, and they were great and remarkable years. And with Murshid Sam, I had those few weeks. And for about a week of those few weeks, he went to Washington and Boston, and I had to stay back and work. So we used to dance in Central Park with him. And if you know Central Park, you know the sheep meadow. We used to dance there, and there were probably, on a good day, there were 12 people, you know, something like that. Every one of my friends, with the exception of one that I brought to meet him, either chickened out or thought he was crazy, and thought I was crazy too, which I didn't understand why they thought that at all. But now I understand. So it was the last dance, the last time he was going to do dance before going back to San Francisco. And he said, "Are you coming to the dance?" I said, "I can't. It's just before the election." I was working for someone running for Congress. I said, "I can't come. It's just before the election." It was the Sunday before the election. I said, I hope you understand, I have to go and do my job. He said, "Yeah, go. It's very important." What? I said, "When is the dance?" He said, "It's at 2 o'clock. I said, 2 o'clock, okay. If I have a chance, I'll come back. He said, "No, go do your work." So I go do my work. Things are frantic, and I had a relatively important job. And around, my work was out on Long Island, not in New York. That was the district we were running in. And around 1:45, my heart crashes. And I tell everybody, I have to go. People are screaming, "You can't go." I said, "I have to go." And I get in my car, and I thought, you know, I could be there for the Kalama dance if there's no traffic. And I get on this street. Anybody know New York or Long Island? You know Rockaway Boulevard? It goes from anyway. Well, when it used to get crowded, forget it. And it was Sunday, and it was a nice day in November, and everybody was out. I wasn't moving. The car was stuck. It was 2 o'clock. It was 2:15. It was 2:30. It was 2:40. And I knew I wasn't going to make it. Because Murshid would dance for 45 minutes. That was the dance. And tears start coming down my face. And I come across the bridge, 59th Street Bridge, and I thought, well, I can walk him home. And I find a parking spot, and I look at my watch, and it's 2:55. And I go to Sheep Meadow, and they're gone. They finished the dance, and they left. And I just sat down on the big rock that's there, and I was shattered. Somebody comes up to me and said, "Why are you so sad?" And I thought he came back for me. I said, "Oh, thank you. Because I missed the dancing." He said, "What are you talking about? The dancing doesn't start till 3 o'clock. I did not say, "Hey, you told me." I didn't say anything. I just danced, which is just what they said here, or just what he said. Just dance. So I'll tell you the end of the story, because it was about an election. it's now election day. We've done everything we can do. We were Democrats running in a heavily Republican district, and the candidate, who was a very close friend of mine, was 25 years old and looked 17 on a good day. And we stole the nomination because nobody else wanted it, for one thing, and her mother was a judge, which helped a lot. Well, the election day, there's no point in my coming to work early because we worked late the night before, and around 5 o'clock or whenever, a couple hours before the polls closed, or maybe an hour, I said, Murshid, I'm going to go to the election headquarters and, say goodbye to everybody. He said he had never met the person running. He said, is Karen going to be there? It was Karen Burstein. And I said, yeah. He said, I'm coming. I said, okay. And we get in the car. He was pretty quiet. He was very quiet driving out there. And we get there, and he walks in, and we had lost. And he goes right up to her. He grabs her hand, and he says, I'm Samuel Lewis from San Francisco. Good job. And he turns and he says, okay, let's go. So we're driving home, and I realize he was in such pain. He took her pain. And she, who she was? She became a state senator, assemblyman, and then was the civil service commissioner of New York and ran for attorney general and was going to win, but this was 10, 15 years ago, and she said she was gay. That was the end of that. Now it would be a landslide, but the times were different. But he really did. He was phenomenal at taking people's pain. I'll tell one more story that I always tell. You probably have heard it 20 times, but it's so integral. It's so telling of who he is and was. I had a friend of mine who was 16. I was dating her older sister. But I really liked her as a person, not as a girlfriend, but as a person. She had the light. She really was quite remarkable. And she called me up one day and she said, I need help. I said, what's going on? And she said, I got pregnant and I had an abortion, and I can't live with myself. I said, hold on. I went in and I said, Murshid, a friend of mine is in trouble. He said, just tell her to come in. He didn't want to know any of the details. So she lived in a different part of Long Island, and I said, listen, get on the train, come on in. I want you to meet somebody. He can help. So she got on the train, and I said, here's the story, Murshid. She's 16. She got pregnant. She had an abortion. She's one of the really, truly sensitive souls. Maybe you could just see her and give her some words or something. He said, okay, wake me when she comes in. He lied down on my couch. And he closed his eyes. He wasn't sleeping. I could tell by now some of his states. And she comes in and she was nervous. And I said, look, this is a holy man. Just tell him whatever you want. She walked into the living room, which was about as big as this platform, I think. It was New York, And he's on the couch, and he opens his eyes. And he looked at her and he said, "Come here, child." So she sits on the floor next to the couch, and he takes her head and he puts it on his heart. And he holds her and he says, "Feel no shame." And then he says, "Feel no shame." And then he said, "Feel no shame." And he held her for a half an hour and just kept repeating, "Feel no shame." This kid was completely transformed from that experience. And I, naively, after she left, went to talk to him about it. He just did that. I got the message. So the last day, actually it was the day before the last day he was to leave, I was finished with the election. It was a few days after the election. I had money. I had no particular job. I had no reason to stay in New York. My friends were in San Francisco. And I said, "Murshid, I want to come to San Francisco." I said, "I want to fly with you." He said, No, you can't come." I said, "Why?" He said, "No, you can't come." I said, "Look, I have no job. I have this, I have the money, I have that." He said, No, you can't come. There's no room." And I looked at him like he was crazy. And I said, this is when I wasn't a Murid, I said, "You mean in the whole city of San Francisco there's no room?" And he said, "Right." So I stayed. What I didn't fully understand at the time was that he made me, he said, "I'm making you my representative in New York." He made me his Khalif, but I didn't know what any of that was. And I said, "Well, what do I have to do as your representative?" He said, "Lead the dances. The rest will follow." I said, "Murshid, I've danced with you a few times. I can't lead the dances. I don't know the dances." He said, "Don't worry, I'll send you a book." And I said, "But I can't carry the book with me." He said, "Yeah, put a few dances that you like on index cards and get a robe with a big pocket." The next week or 2 weeks later, I was leading dances to maybe 8 or 10 people, pulling out my card, putting it back. Within 3 months, we had, and I don't know if any of you ever did it. Rebecca, you did it. We had 350 people dancing every week in the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, the largest Gothic cathedral in the West. I have no idea how that happened. I really mean it. I have no idea. We danced there for a number of years. It was great.